This is Wednesday the 12th of June 2024. I'm doing okay with my remedy. I've had no aggravations as yet. However, I've had a few strange dreams over the last few nights involving conflicts between myself and Dan. The other night I had a dream that we had been called to cater for a lunch, and there was also going to be a gala later that afternoon. We reported for duty. Dan got there before me, and I arrived to find we'd been put in a separate kitchen to the main kitchen, and we were cooking lunch and would not be taking part in preparing the gala meal, which I was a bit miffed about because I had some wonderfully creative ideas, but I took that on the chin. However, Dan was busy chopping steak up to put on the grill, and his apron wasn't done up properly, and I said to him, "Put your apron on properly, babe. It's not tied at the waist. You need to make sure it's on properly to keep your clothes clean for hygiene reasons, and make sure your hands are washed." I also said to him, "Why are you cutting the steak up now? It's over 3 hours until service. It'll be ruined if you put it on now." And I said I was going to go and see the manager to get a brief and to make a cup of tea and compose himself while I was in with the manager. And then when I came out, then with full instructions, then we would be able to get down to business. Dan is impulsive sometimes and will start to do things before he's got all the information. He gets it into his head that he has to do something straight away. That dream ended more or less there. Then the other night I had a dream that Dan had planned an assignation with someone, and I was going to be paying for it, and I questioned him about it and said, "Come clean, I'd rather know the truth." And he admitted he'd been up to something. That did not end especially well. Then last night I had another dream that Dan and I were away, somewhere in Greece or somewhere similar in this hotel, but he was receiving counselling from the GP practice from this therapist who travelled over to see him. And we sat down with the therapist and I said something and she was rude to me. And I must say, I said something else as well, and she was rude to me again. And then they went into a hotel room where she indoctrinated him and put it into his mind that I was a really terrible person. I, meanwhile, went out on a little adventure and got stuck up a pole ladder, and a man who was in front of me did help me up, and I managed to obviously climb over the ladder, because then I'm back in the hotel in the bar area, and Dan's there with a mutual friend of ours and a couple of other people, and he said he wanted to talk to me, but I already knew what he was going to say. And I said, "Well," I said, "I'm going to file for divorce." And he said, "Oh, I think that's a good idea." I said, "It's clear that, you know, we have a toxic relationship and we're no good for each other." And I went to pack. I was going to go back straight away. And then our mutual friend went into another part of the bar and overheard this therapist say that she planned to get Dan for herself and what she'd been up to. And our friend recorded it and let Dan listen, so Dan realised he'd made a mistake, but I'd gone by then. Not very pleasant dreams, I must say, and I think there are teachings to be taken from this, and I will pay attention to these teachings and keep checking my behaviour and doing the best and living in the best way that I possibly can. It can make one feel rather insecure though, and questioning one's relationship. We've been married almost 16 years though, and been together for nearly 19 years, which is longer than a life sentence. And we've had ups and downs, but we're still pretty tight, I would say. And I don't really have any cause to doubt his loyalty and love, just as he hasn't mine. I've pulled a few cards this morning, and this is what I got. These are for us as a collective. Traveller, move in a new direction. Try and think outside the box. Try not to be too rigid. Sometimes being more fluid and going with the flow will serve us well, rather than being rigid and sticking to the old paths that we have followed in the past. Many countries, of course, are going through elections this year, whether by surprise or planned over a longer period of time. We need, though, to start thinking outside the box a bit more and not just be in the frame of mind that there's only ever two choices, right and left. There are many grey areas in life as well, which need not be ignored. Therefore, perhaps step outside of our comfort zones, and in this way, transformation can begin to take place. The next card I have is Spirit Fox. Trust your talents in changing times. Those two go quite well together. Things that you enjoy doing. Some people have creative talents. Some people have scientific or debating talents or organisational skills. We are all talented in our own way. Perhaps it is time, therefore, to try and put aside hate and listening to hate speech and coming together. Despite whatever differences we may have, we are all to some degree chalk and cheese. There are all things that we don't agree on, just as there are things that we do. We may have things in common with one person, but we may disagree with their values. And then other people that we seemingly have nothing in common with, when it comes down to it, we have a lot in common with. So let's talk. Let's start communicating in a more effective way and being receptive to having those debates and those conversations. The next card is Sage. Be devoted and committed. There are many forms of commitment and of devotion. In partnerships, of course, whether loving or between family members or in our work, it is important to be loyal to one another and also committed to whatever it is we are involved with, whether it's a relationship itself or the job that we do and everything else in between. There is no point in being half-hearted about anything. If something is worth doing, then it is worth doing well. Take our house, for example. I've spent quite a bit of money on the hallway and the stairs. I wanted whatever we had done to be sympathetic to the age and history of the house in which we live. Our house was built in that crossover period between Art Nouveau and Art Deco. It was built around 1928. So even though there were Art Deco features, there was still an element that had survived of the Art Nouveau period. And if you think about it, sage is a very wise man or woman, and it is always wise to listen to wisdom, is it not? Then the next card I had was winter, and that says take care of your needs. As much as we want to consider the needs of others or be in a relationship or situation where we give our all, it's also important to make sure our own needs are fulfilled. Otherwise we can end up in a bad way, exhausted, for example, or taken for granted. There are many ways in which not looking after our own needs can affect our relationships with those around us. Whatever kind of relationship it is, whether it's romantic, friendship, family, business. And if we don't take care of our needs, we can also run out of energy, and then we're no use to anybody. So for example, if we're a carer, we can be selfless and not consider that we might need a little bit of downtime in order to still be of full service to the person who needs us. And what can happen if we don't take any downtime is that our own health and well-being becomes affected, and then we're no use to anybody else, nor to ourselves. Therefore, it's important to make sure that we don't overgive, that we are also mindful of our own needs in order to be able to do whatever it is we need to do. And after winter comes spring. See your seeds grow. From all these positive actions, whether it's taking care of our own needs, whether it's moving in a new direction, whether it's being devoted and committed, whether it's trusting our talents in changing times, whatever it is, we have the opportunity now to watch those ideas grow and flourish, those new directions, those ways of living. If we start to become mindful of these words of wisdom, then from that comes action and transformation and opportunity and development, and hopefully lead to deeper relationships with other people and humanity as a whole. Then going on in the background, we have Lord, take charge with authority, and Warrior, be fearless and stand strong. Therefore, listen to our gut instinct. Don't just go for what everybody else does. Go with our gut feeling, what feels right to us, not just following like a sheep. And also standing firm. The time is here when we all need to take positive action in one way or another. There is nobody coming to save us. There is no saviour. And remember, there's a saying, beware of false prophets, which is what my mum always used to say. I can hear her saying it now, and it is we only who have the power to bring about the change that we need to bring about. Personal sovereignty is also very important. If we make a decision, then it is something that we need to live with, and do not have the right to blame other people for a decision that we have made. We are sovereign. Nobody else is responsible for the decision we have made. There's an old warrior saying, live by the sword, die by the sword. A warrior takes full responsibility for his or her actions. I mean, do you think if Joan of Arc hadn't taken all that on board, she wouldn't have lived and died for her cause? She was prepared to put her life, her young life, on the line for what she believed in. She was a warrior until the bitter end. But there are many ways in which one can be a warrior. Sometimes the strong silent types, for example, might go about things in a quiet way. Just do things very quietly, and they contain an element of surprise. And to some it can be a sweet surprise, to others it can be deadly. However we wish to live, therefore, we need to take full responsibility for ourselves and our actions and stop blaming other people for our woes. Actually go and do something about it instead of talking about it. If you just talk about things and then do nothing, then you only have yourself to blame if you don't like the result that you get. And on that note, I am now away to have some lunch. I've been busy today. I've done some sewing and ironing, and I've made sure that the cat's needs are met. And this afternoon I'm going to finish a bit more sewing, and hopefully I might get to play with the piano today and do a bit more ironing before it's time to think about getting the supper ready. Today is Sunday the 16th of June 2024. It's Father's Day, and it's also 6 years since my father passed away. He passed away shortly before the start of Father's Day in 2018, and it was a very traumatic time for all of us as a family. He passed away from dementia, and I heard yesterday from my stepsister Annabelle that her mum, my stepmom, is no longer on her feet due to the rapid progression of vascular dementia. Dementia is a devastating disease. It takes away the whole person, and the person is stripped of their personality, and it's heartbreaking for the family as well as my stepmom and my dad. My maternal grandmother also died as a result of vascular dementia. I may discuss it in more depth in the future. It's a shocking, devastating disease, and sadly there is yet no cure for it. Dan went to the Hop House in Tunbridge Wells today for the car boot sale, and we did well. It's nice to do well for a change. The car boot sales more locally are not very good. This one was a lot better. We took away as well yesterday a bookcase from the 11 Coventry pitch to sell. I'm making some changes, and I will talk about those more in the upcoming weeks. But it's a necessary change for the times in which we are living. I also posted up today my workhouse video as well, which I've really enjoyed doing over the last week or so. I'm now on one bang, one drop twice a day of my remedy, the phosphorous. It's going well. I've not had any aggravations. However, my energy levels seem to have dropped again. My energy levels were doing so well on the previous remedy, the Arsenicum album, but it seems over the last week or so that my energy levels have dropped as well. Of course, other things may also be responsible. I've had a very busy week the last week or so, and also the Schumann resonances off the scale. We've had solar storms and massive flares, but also I think that perhaps the phosphorus remedy, while it is going well in terms of no aggravations, it isn't as effective at helping me with my energy levels, unfortunately, and I've been a lot more tired. I've had to have an afternoon rest today, and also on Friday I needed an afternoon rest. I'll see how the week goes. I may soon endeavour to progress to 2 bangs, 2 drops twice a day. However, I'm just taking it gradually just to see how things go before making any decision. And now I'm going to spend some time with Arthur, who still has a spot of laryngitis, bless him, and Merlin, and then cook supper.